Someone told me the other day, oh, you've got to be careful. If I needed to be careful, I'll go and get a job. You don't learn nothing when everything's just smooth. You don't learn anything. You're just winning. I've seen people try to do what I've done, and it's not worth them. You have to first, it comes from your head, your heart, your mind. You didn't make £50,000 when you was me. You're bloody fucking, sorry.
It's all right. It's not going out on ITV or anything.
Right now, we hear about ChatGPT, we hear about all these different tech taking over the globe. The fact is, we're still going to need somewhere to live. Sometimes I think it's not even the gurus that are the problems, it's the listeners that are the problems. How can somebody tell you you're going to become rich tomorrow by investing in property today, and you believe that? Do you want to quit your job today? You're going to get rich tomorrow, become financially free in property, and you actually listen to that? You can't. You're not going to have it today. I don't sell you, you're going to get rich overnight. But I sell you, you're going to get rich for sure. But give it 5 years. These things takes time. It's knowledge first. You have to set a 5-year goal for yourself. Then you got to take endless, consistent action.
Just spent an hour with Daniel Moses. He is a property investor. From being an Uber driver, he's grown a multi-million-pound portfolio. He's gone through mentorships and training. He's done a rent-to-rent to understand property management and then go into acquisition. He even managed to make his own home an HMO. So he managed to convince his wife somehow that that would be a good idea to move out into rented accommodation and create their home as an investment. I think it's a feat that not many people can say that they can pull off well. So goes into a lot of detail about a lot of different things. I hope you enjoy. Hi, everybody. Today, I am joined by Dr. Daniel Moses. How are you today, Daniel?
I'm so fired up, Sam. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation.
Well, I'm very, very grateful for you to come and join us because you and I, we go back nearly 5 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like I met you at the earlier parts of your property journey.
Very early part.
And you've got one of the more fascinating backstories, I think, from a lot of the people that I come and go with and from my network. If you started out as an Uber driver from the days that we met, and since you've progressed doing multiple HMOs, a rent-to-rent business, a training academy, and much, much more. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I want to dive into a whole bunch of stuff. And we've been talking a little bit just beforehand about a few things that I didn't even intend to talk about, but we'll certainly touch upon those topics. Yeah. But before all of that, I mean, people are going to want to know about that transition from being an Uber driver to what you've been able to achieve since, and in a relatively short space of time. But more importantly for me as well, I tell everybody I'm into social sciences and psychology and sociology and anthropology and history. And I like to see the timeline and what triggers people and what makes people get to where they get to from wherever they come from. But where was Daniel's mindset when he was at school? What sort of person was Daniel at school? Were you academic? Were you studious? Were you rebellious? Did you go to school in the UK?
No, I'm a first-generation immigrant, and I've lived in this country now for just around 20 years. It all started from one day I just basically, waking up from my bed whilst I was still in university and looking at the situation in Nigeria at that time and, some circumstances that I could have been probably killed or dead by now. And I said to myself, I've got to leave this country now. Growing way back as while I was in the university, I was quite a very jovial guy, very interesting character, and very decent. One of the things about me is decency is something that I cherish to my heart, and being humble is something that my mom really taught me how to do really well. So growing up way back in the university days, I literally sold anything sellable apart from guns and drugs. I will be the guy who will sell your T-shirt, your shoes, your car, your air conditioner, your mobile phone. I'll sell anything. And I became quite really known for that in university. I was quite known for that. So automatically that makes a lot of women attracted to myself because I was also very good looking. I drove at least 3 to 4 cars back in those days in university. However, I became quite, in a situation where I became, a friend with, different kind of people, different kind of, groups in the university. So which kind of put me at the level where I became at risk, and I wanted to leave the country by all means. Normally use the word escape. I just wanted to leave. That was one part. And on the other part, growing up as a youth in Nigeria, even you go to school doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed a good job or a good life. I've seen people who became doctors, medical doctors, and seen people who became scientists, and all these different inventors literally just wallow away without not knowing what to do after they went to school. So for me, I always wanted to be great because I was introduced to entrepreneurship in my life quite very young, at the age of 16, all the way through the days I was in university. So at that time, I decided to come to England and for visit. Came to this country, visited a few times, and then made a decision to stay. And the decision to stay was actually, enacted by my wife. So meeting my wife, gave me the reason why I wanted to live in this country. So.
Oh, you met your wife here?
Yeah, I met my wife here. So I met my wife here, and meeting her just wanted me, to stay. So after I met my wife, went through that journey. To be honest, massive, massive roller coaster. So imagine being in a country where you had no family relatives like that. There was no friends, there was nobody. So every person that I know today that I call, some of them my brother, my sister, they're not literally my brothers and my sister or cousins or aunties or uncles. These are people that I met. Friendship leads me to calling them those names or them calling me the same name. And I think relationship for me has always been the key. So I've always know how to maintain long-term relationship. Just look at me and you today.
Yeah.
So for that, and that's exactly the inception of of how I got to where I am. So I came to this country, did all different types of linear jobs. Then I started to export things back to Nigeria. I started to take clothes over to Nigeria. And 2012, literally got fed up of just living that kind of lifestyle where I'm just selling things. I don't even know where I'm going.
So you were taking goods from here back to Nigeria to sell them. They were kind of unique, kind of trendy,
absolutely.
something like that. Okay.
And I will buy cars,
Cars?
I'll buy cars here. I will break them into spare parts, all right, and ship them over to Nigeria.
Wow, okay.
And before actually doing that, there was a lot of other sort of, very, very interesting beginning. I don't really want to go into that now. Because I am trying to stay at the adapted mindset that I have now. Yes, I know sometimes going back to the challenge that you've been through life, I think I've told that story 1,001 times, so I just don't want to talk about all of that. But at the end of the day, those pains, those struggles that I went through put me in the position that I am in. So I'll break cars, I'll ship things, anything at all, I'll ship it over to Nigeria to sell. And around about 2012, I kind of got tired of doing all of that. I wanted something better, something more, because I've been married, I've got kids now. And eventually, I remember, making up my mind after having a very interesting conversation with a very good friend who had visited, the UK at that time, and said, why don't you come back to Nigeria? We can hook you up with one or two people back home in Nigeria. You can go into oil and gas. So the small money I had, I went back home to set up an oil and gas business. So remember, I've always been an entrepreneur all the way through.
Yeah.
So now, got to Nigeria, I started oil and gas business. Within the very first 2 years, I was doing really well. Then come 2005, by truck with petroleum products, moving petroleum product from the depot to the petrol stations where they would be sold. Two of them running into each other and literally bursting into flames into the valley. The locker had that nobody died. However, this was my money. Some of the investments, some little, not like 80% of the money was my money. And all of a sudden now, I've lost over £150,000 in a twinkle of an eye.
Literally up in flames.
Ups and flame, and I'm like, oh my days, what a blood is going on here? So it's almost like at that point in my life, I took a flashback and I'm like, hold on a minute. I went to university all the way from 1999, 2000, all the way to 2004 when I graduated. It seems to be nothing is working in my life. My life seems to be, it seems to be miserable. Like nothing is working. I've been through so many challenges. Like I said, I didn't want to go into any of that today. So, and I'm like, what is going on here? And all I really realized was I started to go into depression.
Okay.
I started to go into depression. I started to go into anxiety. I started to become a sad person, and the question was, what is bloody going on?
And you already had like a wife and kids, so you're a family man, and you're in this space, and you're supposed to be like the somebody to look up to, but you're going through all this hardship, and then like what is it that helped you? Who did you turn to? What did you turn to help you out of it?
The point is, I was going through all of these things, and I was trying to share it to my wife, but my wife didn't understand it. So my wife's question was the same question: what is going on? I married you. This was not what you promised me. I married you. You said all these good things are going to happen, and it seems to be like we're jumping from one fire to fire, one fire to fire. What is going on?
Yeah.
And I started to also feel like I've let her down. And at that point, our marriage started to really suffer, where, it was like we're living in a house, but we're not really living in a house. It's like we have great relationship, but it's like at the same time, we're just trying to do that because of the kids. And we was going through all of that trauma. And I remember my anxiety level and depression level got to a point where, for example, I was being, I had to call NHS ambulance almost every other night. I had to call, 999 every other night because I would have panic attacks. My heart would palpitate as if I was going to die. And I went through that for the whole of 2016, and even up to early part of, or probably mid part of 2017, I'm going through all of that. But before I started going through that depression, and I've given up, I'm not going to be an entrepreneur anymore. I just need to find something to do. And my wife like, okay, that's fine if you want to have, what are you going to do? But you never had a job before. And that's exactly how I got into delivery driving. So I went into driving at Yodel and driving with Amazon. And a friend of mine called Kevin then said to me, how much are you really making as a delivery driver? Because they knew I was okay, and he said, I can introduce you to taxi. You make more money. Working as a delivery driver, I bet don't cover most of your costs because you're doing this full time, because I was doing it full time.
Right.
And that's exactly how I got into Uber driver. So I ended up applying for the license, getting the license, started to drive for Uber. So whilst I was driving for Uber, to be honest, because I was now on the road for at least 12 hours, from 12 hours to 16 hours to 18 hours. Initially, when I started, it was about 12 hours, but later it became like 18 hours.
And why? Just because it was kind of addictive?
I was going through depression.
And this was
I was
just
going
like an
through so
outlet.
many things. I was going through a world where I'd rather be out than be home. I'd rather be driving rather than be doing anything else.
If you're making money at least,
Yeah,
and you're working right?
at least I was making good £3,000 a month.
Did you? This is always a question that I have, because I think if I was doing that, and I always thought that if that was around 20 years ago or something, when I was at uni, I would have probably done something like that. What did you listen to on the radio? Did you just have the radio on in the background? Did you have self-help things? But were you listening to something specifically, or were you just in another world?
Interesting, very interesting question. Whilst I was going through that, the only thing I knew at that time was listening to LBC.
LBC leading
radio.
Britain's conversation.
Literally, just listen to LBC. Listen to LBC, and maybe on a Friday, Choice FM. Then, most times because of the kind of songs that I'm a soul jazzy guy. I listen to a lot of soul music and jazz music.
Jazz FM.
So every time I come into, playing that all the time, except the very matured, passengers.
Yeah.
Most of them always look at, what kind of weird guy are you? Like, who listens to this kind of music at this time of the day? But that was me trying to just be in my own world.
Yeah.
And till today, that's the kind of music I listen to. So when people come in and don't like that kind of music, I just put in the news because I don't want anybody to tell me, play this or play that.
Yeah.
And no, I wasn't listening to any motivational stuff at
LBC
all.
though as well is quite it's kind of controversial. It's kind of like either left wing leaning or right wing, depending if you're listening to Nick Ferrari in the morning or James O'Brien. I mean, honestly, I got sucked into it for a good amount of time as well. It's good to know what's going on in the country and what the debates are on. Did you find that it was helpful, or did you find it was just like something that was in the background because?
For me,
you were in your own world still.
I was in my own world. But what that did for me was, I've been in this country for quite a long time. I'd never really understand the culture.
Right.
I never really understand what it means to be British, what it is to live like a, like a Briton and all these different
Yeah,
things.
yeah, totally.
LBC literally was just, for me, it was more like me just understanding England.
Like a crash course in the English British
Exactly.
culture.
Because remember, I've lived in this country for a while, and this is 2015, literally what, 8 years ago? So I'm listening, I'm like, okay, and to be honest,
That's really interesting,
yeah.
though.
And before that, the only people I surrounded myself with was just people who were like me, people who are from where I am, my local community, my local church. So
For
it's
sure.
always just very Nigerian, very African. That was it. Until I literally go into property, I'll be very honest with this. Until I literally go into property, I never really had a misculture. I never had a relationships in terms of, I was just sucked into
It's
this.
very common, though. My wife is from around. I hope she doesn't mind me saying, but she always, she tells me herself, she watches EastEnders to be able to like, so whichever country you come from, you can have this kind of stereotypical accent.
Yeah.
So she was like, I learned English accent from EastEnders, and also like a lot about English culture and the pub and this and that and
Yeah.
the other from watching EastEnders. I kind of like, that was my crash course, and because similarly, for all her friends from uni, she kind of gravitated towards, like her own kind to a certain extent. And after doing that, though, it was easier for her to kind of integrate and assimilate with other people as well,
Yeah.
because she felt like she can get on their level. So I can totally relate with that. That's very cool that you did that. So what made you go from like 18 hours a day in the car, listening to Jazz FM and LBC, to thinking there's got to be more to life than this?
This is one
Not
of
that that's bad, by the way, but
Yeah.
you something was going on in you that you felt there was something more going on. So how
Absolutely.
did that happen?
I think when I quitted my life as an entrepreneur and I gave up everything, because for me, to the point where I started to drive Uber, because I was making decent amount of money, but for me, it's spirituality that changed everything for me.
Really?
So spirituality mean I just started to question God. I'm like, God, is this what you want for me? And I kept praying. I just pray and I pray and I pray. And I remember there was this particular day I was coming from Stansted Airport, and I just dropped someone off early hours of the morning, if I'm right. It was quite early in the morning. It was a very early ride. And I had worked from 5 a.m. So I had worked from 4 p.m. the previous day. So worked into the next day. So it was an early ride from somewhere in South London all the way to Stansted. And on my way coming back from the airport, I didn't queue up, but I was just want to go back to the city because I've got to be back home to drop my kids off in school in the morning, then have a few hours sleep. I remember falling asleep on the steering wheel on my way back, and the next thing I can hear in my, it's like, you just doze off for a minute and it's like, wake up. And I woke up. And when I woke up from that shock, my car was already heading towards the Hatchet lane and everything. But the good thing was I don't really speed, like that. So that was the good thing, and I wasn't speeding. I was about to crash and I woke up and I was like, oh, what else? And the next thing, the same thing that told me to wake up, told me you need a nap. Just go into the finding a service point and to have a nap. So I remember parking in the petrol station, having a nap. I can't remember how long was that nap. I was in that nap. It was more like when that happened, I started to crave myself. So I could have,
Yeah.
this,
That's a near death experience, and you got kids and all that. It's like that's
it was quite hard, and I remember sleeping, and in that sleep I was just dreaming, and in that dream I saw myself in a seminar, and I saw myself doing what I do today, and I woke up. I was about to open my Uber app so I can just see if I get anything else to take me down to London because I was set my destination to bring me back home. And something says to me, check Facebook and just see what's happening on Facebook. I open my Facebook app and I was just scrolling through, and then something just pops in my face, how to get started in property with no money and all of this. The guy's just talking, and he's inviting people to come to an event in central London. So I remember clicking the link, and it was a £70 networking event in central London. After all, we met in a networking event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I clicked that form and I filled my details in. I paid £70.
Which is expensive for a networking event.
Yeah.
Usually like 20, 30 quid, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine that. At that time, I mean, depending on the kind of events that I don't want to go cheap events these days because I want to meet the kind of people I'm looking for, right? So anyway, £70 event, paid for that event, went to Central London, Trafalgar Square, really lovely environment. Go into the room and everyone is talking, and a lot of people talking about property, all these different things. I was like, okay, what am I even doing here? You know, like you get into a room and you're asking yourself, this is not for you. And you're asking yourself, why?
Yeah.
You just waste. So for me, I started to have that guilt of.
Oh, you start feeling out of place a little bit? Like, why am I here?
First of all, I was the only black man in that room.
Okay.
All right? I was the only black individual in that room. So for me, I'm still this guy I'm in this seminar, I'm still in my African mindset in terms of, I've never really pushed myself out to be in a place where I'm quite in a diverse community and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna, I'm an Uber driver. I speak to a lot of white, black, yellow, red, any kind of person. But being at that level where, you feel like everyone is all suited and looking clean and nice, and you're feeling like, honestly, like I'm really feeling awkward. I managed to stay to the end. And in the end of that presentation, the guy spoke about having a 3-day mastermind, £3,500. I'm like, okay. I went to him, spoke to him. I said, I don't have the money, but can you allow me pay, instrumentally? And that was what gave birth to the person I am today.
No way. Do you remember who that person was? Like, is that person still around today?
Of course. Well, they don't do coaching anymore. But obviously, after that, I've gone ahead to, having mentors from there.
Right.
From that training event, my next training event that I went to was Carl Hutchins.
Okay.
And my journey began with Carl Hutchins, from Carl Hutchins to Kevin Green, from Kevin Green to my business coach, Adam Stoll, from my business coach, Adam Stoll, to Grant Cardone. And it's just been rapidly like that.
It's important, I think, to emulate, or to at least you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with.
Yeah.
If you hang out with 5 millionaires, chances are you're going to be the next one.
Yeah.
So I totally believe in all that, and it is a fascinating story to see where you've come from, and I mean, two containers full of petrol colliding, some kind of serious explosion, to have some massive change in your life, and over thousands of miles from one continent to the other, and suddenly you're in a property event, feeling out of place, but you're kind of almost just leading by instinct, thinking there's something here. Let me just try it out. Let me keep going. Let me see one more thing. Let me have a little bit of faith, and all of that faith in yourself and that belief that there's something else and other people. It's led you down, because some people, like, they go and they try these things, and they come away going, I feel like I got ripped off, and then they make a Facebook group about it, and this, that, and the other. Whereas you've gone the other way, which a lot of other people do as well, and I've seen some really, really fantastic success stories off the back of these education businesses, etc., and training, and I've gone on to do some wonderful things, which we're about to talk about.
Absolutely.
So, what was it about property specifically? Was it just the fact that you turned it on at Facebook, and it basically, there was a guy, you almost said, like, inviting me onto that thing? Was that the reason? If it was Forex, would you think you would have gone down that route, or why property?
To be honest, why property? The fact was that myself and my wife, we bought our first family home in 2006. And to be honest, I wish I know in 2006 you can become wealthy in property. I would have bought hundreds of them.
Yeah, that's always the classic, isn't it? Everybody.
I wish I just knew how to do what I know now. 2006, I would have just gone crazy to have hundreds of them, where my generations and generations to come would ever have to worry about money. You see, the worry of money is the worst thing anyone can ever have in life. just being worried about money.
It's stressful, right?
It's stressful to be. It's stressful. It's painful not to have money. See, I've come to tell myself these days, right, that I'm gonna not be political anymore because I've tried to kind of control how I speak and stuff like that. But the fact is, people say, "Oh, money doesn't make you happy." Are you serious? If I didn't have money, will I be able to get on a train or drive my car to come on this podcast? The pain of knowing you could be somewhere and not having the money to pay for it. Can you imagine that? Do you know how many people's life could be changed, but because they didn't have the money to pay for their train ticket?
100%.
So for me, property gives you that security. It's non-volatile depending on the angle you're looking at it from. Right? Right now, we hear about ChatGPT. We hear about all these different, tech taking over the globe. The fact is, we're still going to need somewhere to live. Yes, you have co-working spaces. Very soon, people are going to work more in co-working spaces rather than having office buildings, right?
Yeah.
But one fact still remains. If you travel from here to Miami, you're going to need a hotel to live in for a week, 2 days, 3 days, whatever the number of days is. You're going to need somewhere to live in.
It's a human need, right? Shelter.
It can't. It's like food.
Yeah. It's always going to be a demand for it. It's just how do you deliver the product.
Exactly.
Might change a little bit, but the essence is still the same.
If you look at statistics has shown to us that over thousand years, land value always go up. So look at where we are now in this part of Stratford. Many years ago, this was a complete industrial area.
100. Yeah, mate. Honestly.
So imagine if you bought this property many years before it was regenerated. So at the time where the regeneration took place, so imagine that impact of financial profit that could come to you and your family. So over time, real estate, regardless of recession, regardless of interest rates, one thing I have come to really learn is to understand one simple fact. Regardless of what assets is saying or not, property or land banking, for example. So just understand that over time, regardless of what the market is saying, over time, it will always correct itself. So for me, that was exactly what I found out. And once I found that out, I'm like, okay, I'm sitting there. I'm going to do whatever I can just to kind of understand how to leverage around it and to just keep restructuring, releveraging, and it gets to a place where you now want to maybe, reduce your debt if you want to. Imagine owning a portfolio of £100 million and your debt is only 50%. You're doing good business.
Here's a concept that you mentioned the name Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Now, I followed Grant Cardone quite a lot, actually. Sometimes I don't like to admit it out in public, but here I am doing it. But I mean, look, I read a lot of his books. I think I've read them all, actually. I do actually resonate with a lot of his messaging. Sometimes even Gary Vee, sometimes it's very Americanized way of kind of delivering the message, maybe as well, that grinds on me a little bit. But overall, there is a lot of things that I tend to agree with the way that he thinks, and he's all about entrepreneurialism and all about he's a big believer that wealth and money, especially, is your duty. He calls it, right? If you can do it,
success is your duty.
Exactly. If you can do it, then you absolutely should fulfill your potential and do it, and it's your duty, and you're letting everybody down if you don't do it. I kind of resonate with that, and I kind of feel that because you're creating a business, you're creating trade and jobs and wealth for other people through being able to do what you do. So there's lots of stuff. There's one controversial one, which I happen to agree with him about, but every time I've mentioned it at a dinner party, I always get people looking at me funny, and that is that you should not buy your own home to live in. You should rent where you live and buy where other people can afford to rent. On that particular one, what's your take? Do you agree, disagree?
I don't own where I live.
Right.
I'm renting where I live.
Me too.
My rent is just significantly okay. But I own multiple houses.
So it's not like you don't buy houses.
I buy houses that pays me income to pay my rent, pay my living, rather than to own my house. But if he's done correctly, so Grant Cardone now owns a house. But when he first started, that was the concept. So what he meant is when people think about going into property right now, the first thing they do is buy their own home. And most time, 9 out of 10 people, when you buy your first home, it's almost a struggle to buy the second one.
Yeah.
And most people sometimes don't even know how to buy the second one.
Most people don't ever buy.
Most people don't ever buy a second one.
Yeah, they buy one at a time. I mean, you bought one in 2005, 2006, right?
Yeah, 2006.
And you lived in it.
I lived in it
and that was
13 years, and that was it. So imagine I knew how to buy where I live. Up to the year 2019, I knew how to buy where I live, and that was what I ever did. And we paid the mortgage, yes. The property we bought it at 247 in 2006, and in 2019 was worth £430,000. But if I knew what I know now, what would have stopped me from buying 10 of them?
Yeah, exactly.
What would have stopped me from buying 10 in 2006? If I bought 10 properties in 2006 in the same street, in the same location, and in 2019, I didn't do nothing to it, and it was worth 430. Okay, now let me tell you one more thing. In 2020, the same property that was worth 430 was now worth £720,000.
Exactly.
So imagine if I bought 10 of them in 2006, and by 2020, they were all worth 720.
From 3...
From 2006...
No, what was the price starting from?
247.
247 up to 730.
720.
720. That's nearly 450 grand or something like that.
So times that by 10 equity.
4.5 million.
It's just principles, right? So this is the thing, right? I decided to go and get myself an American mentor for a reason. Because in the UK here, no disrespect to anyone, where entrepreneurship is taught to be safe. But actually, Google, check entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is all about creativity. Entrepreneurship is about opportunity. Entrepreneurship is taking something that's not working and make it work. So when I went through my challenges as an Uber driver and I lost everything way back in 2015, it all makes sense to me now that I need to overcome those challenges to be the person that I am. So we need to start understanding some certain points in our lives that actually, entrepreneurs there is no such thing as playing safe as an entrepreneur. But there's such thing as playing smart. Someone told me the other day, oh, you've got to be careful. I said, if I needed to be careful, I'll go and get a job.
No, I get that. And I think one of the famous, I've got loads of quotes in my head constantly that I'm living my life principles. One of them is the biggest risk of all is taking no risks. So if you want to avoid taking risks, you're actually taking the biggest risk in your life. And I live my life by that. I'm all about taking risks. But somebody else said about business quote as well, is that business is not about taking risks. It's about minimizing risks. So it's about investing smart.
Yeah.
Looking at...
look at Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
You heard the story, right? He created PayPal. From PayPal, he had to launch SpaceX. Did you know how many times SpaceX actually failed before it became successful?
Yeah.
Right? It was I think it was on the 5th attempt. So he launched it 4 times, right? Yeah, I think it's 4 to 5. It was the 4th time. The 5th time, it became a successful launch, right? Landed back correctly. Now he was able to develop a reusable rocket, right? Now from that, Tesla. From Tesla, he's looking to develop... name has escaped me now. He's looking to develop the fastest
the speed train.
Speed train.
Yeah, the Hyperloop.
Hyperloop. So he's looking to do that now. So look at Jeff Bezos. Look at Richard Branson. Look at all these different people. So I always say this, right? There's not everyone is an entrepreneur. Most people are actually entrepreneurial. but they call themselves entrepreneur. What is the difference between entrepreneur and intrapreneur? An entrepreneur is the risk taker that takes the right risk, right? And also the intrapreneur is someone who basically should support the entrepreneur. But because they're self-employed, the entrepreneur, they think, oh, I can do all of these things now, but they haven't got the risk appetite. So I'll give you an example of what I'm going to call a risk appetite. In 2019, having started my rent-to-rent portfolio, I built it all the way to 2019, and I didn't have the money that I needed to start buying assets. The first risk I took was to use the coaching, the messaging, the knowledge, everything I've learned from my mentors, and basically moved out my residential home. Myself, my wife, and my 2 kids. My son is 15 now. My daughter is 12 years old. I've been married to my wife. This year will be 17 years. I've risked it all before. The thing about entrepreneurs, sometimes when you lose everything, it becomes a point where it's normal. Because if you've made it before, you made it again, you're going to make it again. And that's just the truth. In order for you to win and survive, or, anything you want to become, I think is important. I say this all the time. Property alone is not enough to make you successful financially. All right? It's not just, oh, okay, yeah, I can buy one property here, or you can turn your own house today. I've seen people try to do what I've done, and it's not worth them. You have to first, it comes from your head, your heart, your mind, or your mind, your heart, your head. These 3 components have to work together. You have to first visualize the success of what you're doing, that it's going to work. And you got to work on your mindset. And I say this all the time as well. It's 90% mindset. It's 90% mindset. It's just 10% of the rest of it. If your mind tells you you're going to win, you're going to win as long as you take the action. So for me, the fact was that I built up a mindset whilst I was then going through all this coaching, all this mentorship. I became a networking dog.
Machine.
A machine. I've kind of, reduced it a little bit now because I'm in the scale phase of my business, so I'm really working hard on that phase, which is another story as well. So for me, I had to show my wife. It's almost like there's a movie called Die Hard, Try Dying or something. I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
50 Cent.
Oh, Get Rich or Die Trying.
So it's almost like I'm gonna either survive and win regardless, and I'm not quitting on this, because the moment I discovered it, and the question was, every time I think about it, it keeps taking me back to 2006. How come I didn't know this in 2006? How come I'm only now knowing this? Obviously, what was different? I did not invest in myself. I did not have mentors. I did not have the right environment.
Yeah.
I did not have the right environment. I did not have people who I can actually show. So for me, I was able to show all of these things to my wife, and I was able to also tell her the fact that, listen, you've seen me fail 1,001 times, right? And there's something you must appreciate about me. Yes, I actually came to a point where I quitted in 2016. I haven't been through what I've been through in 2016. I quitted. But I think God is leading me in the right way this time. God is leading me on this.
Everything's kind of leading to this moment.
Everything was just leading.
That was teaching. I always say you never lose. You only win or learn.
Yeah, this is the thing. You don't learn lessons when everything is working for you.
Yeah.
You don't learn nothing when everything's just smooth and nothing is happening. You don't learn anything. You're just winning. So for me, God prepared me for this. And it's not like my life isn't difficult today, but I choose to make it easy. And it is easy. So I've sold that to my wife where, over the years, she now totally believed in me. But it was very, very, very hard for her. It took me over, if I'm right, between 6 to 9 months to convince her. At some point, I'll look at her, I'm like, why can't you just let me do this? And she was very risk reverse. She became frustrated by it. She became like, why do you want to just destroy everything? And I kept selling. And I think one of the biggest strong strengths of where that's come from now is that I learned to sell and I sold my wife. I learned to sell and I sold my wife. And last year, April, she's now resigned from her 25 years career as a corporate manager with Marks and Spencer. So if she never got sold or she never bought, probably she would still be working. There's nothing wrong anyway in working in the corporate industry, but there's something right working in an established business that you own.
Oh, the family business.
The family business. Now she has she has the most precious thing anybody will wish for, which I will, that we now have, which is time and freedom.
Yeah.
So we can wake up today, we're going to Dubai. We can wake up and go in, but we're not still doing that yet. Still relax. We're delaying everything. I've only taken my family abroad in the last 5 years once.
We're
delaying everything.
Delayed gratification.
We're delaying this gratification because that's what I've learned.
And it all starts with the mindset thing. I completely agree with you. And I think one of the things that always kind of endears me about your journey as well is that you are a family man. I see you kind of waking up early in the morning, going for runs, like healthy body, healthy mind, and then you'll be in the car, and then you'll be listening to Grant Cardone, or just any kind of like somebody that's empowering you to think in a certain way, to achieve a certain thing. And I think all of this stuff in general, if you perceive it and interpret it and receive it in the right way, is very, very helpful, and not only to oneself, to the individual, but to those around you, whether it be your friends, family. And the wider community. So I think it's quite interesting to see how couples work together, because sometimes it doesn't work very well, and I've got first-hand experience of that in my own life, which I'll go into another time. But but there's a whole lot of love there. So even win, lose, or draw, everything's good. But the fact that you've been able to make that work and kind of morph it into a family business, I think it's very inspirational for a lot of people as well that are in a situation and they want to bring their whole family with them. And sometimes there's a bit of a mismatch on what should be done, risk,
I think,
reward.
Just to kind of quickly interject there, right? I think the biggest problem is always when it comes to man and woman, both of them are trying to lead. And the truth is, sometimes we all can't lead. One person has to lead. If two people are trying to lead, the ship is going to break. It's going to capsize.
Two captains. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks in the kitchen. It's not going to work. I think one of the biggest problem with couples is the fact that the man is trying to lead, the woman is trying to lead. They're both trying to lead at the same time. Then come the kids as well trying to lead. Oh, Dad, you can't tell me that because you're wrong, I'm right. So everyone is trying to lead because of the political correctness that exists in this part of the world. So for me, I've chosen, all right, to live in my own country, to live in my own economy, to build my own future. And regardless of what is around me, I'm focused on my goals. I'm focused on where I'm going to. I'm focused on where I'm trying to lead me to. So no, I'm not trying to lead. I'm not trying to be led by any other person. I'm trying to be led by my beliefs. I'm trying to be to lead with what I have seen in life. I've seen so many ups and downs. I'm 43 years old. I'm not young like that, but I'm not old like that as well. But I have gone through my 20s, my 30s, to not know the difference between good and evil, or the difference between bad and good. Does that make sense? And I know the fact that when I was low, when I was down there, it was me. Nobody came to save me. So I'm the only one that came to save myself. So for me, at the end of the day, I think it's quite important for couples to really kind of unite together. One have to put one ego down. So if the woman is trying to be the leader and you're convincing her leadership, let her lead. If the man is trying to be the leader and he says, baby or honey or whoever it is, one person has to lead. The other one has to be a supporter, the supporting system. 12 months since my wife has been in the business now, I gradually, I'm out of management and I'm out of operation gradually.
And she helps out with a lot of that.
I don't deal with management. I don't deal with operations at all. And she's being groomed into that. So when we go into our scale phase, which we are now, so for both of us, when we bring in the other qualified professionals to lead this business, it just goes towards where it needs to go. Because first of all, she understands operation, then she can get an operational manager and they can work online, in and out. I'm a CEO, I'm a founder. I consistently associate myself with founders and I continually build up myself. So I think it's just very important as a family, as a union, when you're trying to build an empire, trying to build a family business, it's important for one person to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, is it, and egos be left at the door, and then who has the strongest vision? Is that I think it's this way? That may be
We just moved into a new house the other day. We moved from a smaller house that we used to live in to a larger family home, 5-bed, detached, and I never ever went into the building or saw the house before we moved into it. So we picked up the keys. Was the first day I saw the house.
You're like, I trust you got this covered.
You got that covered. Like, when it comes to the money part of the business, let me deal with it.
Yeah,
So we've both now we know what our strengths are.
That's the perfect
she
thing.
knows the vision. The vision is she knows the kind of house I want to live in. When you come into my house, I have got a large office like this. She knows that that's what I wanted. Because way back, I used to drive into, when I was an Uber driver, myself and my wife would drive into this mansion, 5-bed. I said, I'm going to live here one day. And she looked at me as an Uber driver. What the hell are you talking about? And everything we have planned, we've manifested.
Do you, this is the last question I ask you on couples and goals, but I think it's really, really important. I think it probably is a bit of self-therapy because I go through this stuff as well. But do you have do you do things together? Do you set goals together? Do you do any of that kind of annual stuff, or is it just has it been quite organic the way you've come together so far?
I'm the goal setter.
You're the goal.
I am the goal setter. So between me and my wife, now I'm the goal setter. I'm the guy with the vision. I am obviously the entrepreneur as well. I think for both of us now, it's because the thing about working in the corporate industry, sometimes you just find yourself leaving. You just find yourself go to work, come back, you get paid a nice wage. You live a good life, you go on holiday, and that's just about it. A little bit of Sunday brunch, dinner, and that's just about it. My wife was in corporate industry, and all she talks about was our work in terms of that. But now we talk about empire. We talk about, okay, can other people see what we're doing, especially in the ethnic minority? Can we inspire more people together? Can you give? The other day, a lady asked us, how have you guys been able to stay 17 years together? And I said, it's not been easy staying 17 years together in today where marriages don't last 3 years. But we've been together for 17 years. We're raising 2 amazing kids. My son is 15 years old. So for us, we come together and talk. And I share the vision. This is the vision. This is what I want us to achieve this year. This is the kind of way I want us to live. This is what time I want us to get up. This is, let's go for the most part I'm struggling with at the minute is going to the gym together and going for that morning run together, and stuff like that. But a lot of other things are coming in shape because the fact is I've basically provided a plan that takes us from where we are to where we want to be in 15 years from now. So 15 years from now, probably I'll be 58 years old. Not probably. I will be 53 years old. So we've set that plan of where we want to be, 5 years time, 10 years time, 15 years time. What do we want to, do in all of these things? And every element that needs to be put together is being put together. Yeah, what couples needs to really have that simple common grounds and mission.
I think, whether you're working together or not, I think it's helpful to have that. The fact that you work together, I think it makes, in my mind, it makes sense to kind of, again, through communication, to be on the same page about everything and delegate. It's like any partnership, I guess.
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Property Wealth Corporation, a collection of companies built to create wealth through investments and knowledge in property. The group consists of several brands encompassing property education, property management, and property capital. Property Wealth Corporation aims to empower its clients to build a property portfolio that leaves a legacy. Their team supports both local and international investors, specializing in both large and small scale projects, as well as providing investment opportunities and educational courses and events. The company is founded and run by Dr. Daniel Moses, who has already helped hundreds of property investors kickstart their investing journey, with many going on to generate significant wealth. If you're new to property or looking to grow your network with like-minded, knowledgeable experts, find out about Property Wealth Corporation at propertywealthcorp.com. Now, going back to more of the property side of things, so rent to rent. You were doing a bunch of rent to rent. Do you still do rent to rent? And because it's effectively property management, right?
Yeah, personally at the moment, I don't personally do rent to rent, but once in a while, some of my community members do bring in deals. If it's in my area, in my Goldman area, which is Bromley, I'll definitely take it on. But other than that, I'm just focusing on growing, scaling my portfolio.
So acquisitions.
Acquisition, yes. I'm doing acquisition. I'm doing portfolio building for clients, and as well as I am, doing acquisition as well for clients as well. So portfolio building, acquisition for clients, and my personal portfolio, and obviously our education company has grown from strength to strength, as well. And one of the biggest part of that I'm looking to even achieve on that as well is to, within the next 5 years to grow into how can I have my own bridging company and things like that.
Which we're going to come to in a minute. Which I'm very interested to talk about online and offline. The HMOs and the rent to rents. So it seems like the rent to rents are quite a obvious evolution, because you're managing multi-let properties. The only difference is that somebody else owns it.
Yeah.
And then you're taking the margin basically between all the rooms being divided, and then you are
renting it out on a room-by-room basis
and giving it normally a guaranteed rent back to the
owner.
So I mean, you could do a letting agency, which is pretty much the same, but instead of taking 10% of the rent, you take the margin between what you're giving the fixed rent, which is usually a higher amount, but you're taking on more risk as well, more management. Is that did that strategy help you in terms of your understanding of how to manage the HMOs when you finally bought them? Was that a good stepping stone, did you find?
Absolutely. The HMO, literally, rent-to-rent HMO really opened up the door. So, because that's where my journey began from. My journey began from rent-to-rent HMOs, then property sourcing, and that's what gave me the foundation. Because I didn't have no money. I didn't have money. I was an Uber driver, right? So I didn't have nothing at all. So it gave me the opportunity to learn what to implement what I've learned, all right, through all these courses and everything else. And as I transitioned, there are things that wasn't taught in the course that I started to understand myself, which I got through supportive, other landlords networks, and as well as, continue, to develop myself and put them together. And running as a business as well, because a lot of people do get into rent to rent, don't understanding that it's a business. Well, that you're actually doing the management business. Okay, so it's your duty to provide X, Y, Z to your tenants, and obviously make your landlords happy as well. So yeah, the rent to rent gave me the foundation to make that transition into acquisitions, and I started acquisition in 2019. So 3 years now that I have been doing acquisitions, and yeah, excited.
And so, you mentioned your gold mine area is Bromley, which is in southeast London.
Yeah.
Was that purely because that's an area that you lived, you knew it well, you didn't want to go traveling? But the reason why I ask as well, now I know that you're doing stuff up in the northeast, which is where I was brought up. So going from literally your backyard to remote investing, how did that journey start, and where are you at with it? Are you enjoying it? Is it harder than you thought? Is it fun?
It's quite interesting, right? And I think many people are going to laugh at this. And haven't started, my property in Bromley in a very good way. I came up with this crazy plan to buy one property at least in every city in England.
Okay. Do you know how many cities are around England?
So, and when I was drawing out the map, I basically drew out the what's it called now? at least 30 major cities,
Okay,
right?
the top 30 then, let's say.
The top 30, and I draw the top 30, and I got Newcastle, I got Liverpool, I got Birmingham, I got
Manchester,
Bristol,
Leeds, Sheffield,
Doncaster, Wakefield,
Reading.
so I just kind of mapped and mapped and mapped. I
Pretty
said I'm gonna go and own one property in every city, and the reason why I did that, I said, well, okay, I don't really travel abroad like that, right? So
I'm going to go on a tour of all my Airbnbs.
So I just traveled to Newcastle, and I know I've got a house there, and yeah, it's obviously it's got cash flow, and as well as there's got to be capital appreciation and what such not. And plus, it's a lower barrier to entry as well. So I said I'll just go and build one. Now, that was number one. Then number two was I have a community. We have got 3,000 people who are in my non-paid, community who follow me every single day, actively in property. I've got over 100,000, approximately about 100,000 followers across my media. But I've got 3,000 people who are very inclined in property in my little community, and I talk to them every now and then. And the story was some of them come to me, oh, I wanted to buy a house in London, but when I look at your spreadsheet and the numbers that you talk all the time, it seems impossible. So for me, I decided to be the guinea pig. All right. So I'll go and buy a property in Newcastle. I'll do it and I'll share the numbers. I'll go and buy a property in Leeds. I'll do it. I'll show the numbers. So if it's worked for me there,
works for you.
It works for you. So at least I know it's not going to be more than 10 miles around where I've done something.
Absolutely. Yeah. That makes sense.
And that's the best way to be a leader, right? That's the best way to lead. So for me, I really want to help the ethnic minority around me that thought property investment is impossible, because I came from that point of lack. I came from that point, like I said, I never had, a white friend, an Asian friend. I never had someone who, I lived in this very dark part of my life here in this country where the only people I knew was just African people from my little community, first generation immigrants. We live in a different kind of world here. How I live now is almost like impossible. That's the way we look at it. And when we see someone that lives like, it's like, wow, so it's a black man living like this. And that's where I've come from. So for me, like I said, it's a very funny way why I've gone to the north. I've gone to the north because I know some aunties and uncles that's got £30,000 in their bank account and having that mentality of never coming out of a council flat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say to them, oh, your take can get you something in Durham County, for example, where you're from.
Yeah.
Or some. And the fact is, just hold on to that £30,000. If you can buy refurbished, refinance it, right, and pull most of your money out, regardless of whether the property is giving you £100, £200 a month, doesn't matter. At least you own an asset in England, which is a big deal for ethnic minorities.
Yeah.
So for me, that's just what I wanted to.
That's the motivation.
That's the motivation around me, saying, you know what, Bromley, that's mine. But let me go outside. It's not about the profit now. Let's just happen.
Yeah. I mean, like not many people like going north of Watford. So the fact that you've gone all the way to the northeast, which is I'm from Durham City, is impressive. Have you managed to pick up anything there yet?
We picked up about 8 deals, and we closed up. We were just completed on 5 last two weeks.
Amazing. And what are these? Are these that going to be the exact model? You bought them, refurbished them, refinanced.
Yep.
Trying to see if you can pull out as much as you can. The one beautiful thing, there's many beautiful things about the Northeast, but the one beautiful thing when it comes to property, in my opinion, is the phenomenal yield that you get.
Yeah.
The property values are generally relatively low, and the rents are
Decent.
reasonably, they're decent. You get some good yields. And especially in the environment that we find ourselves in with a higher interest rate, higher interest coverage ratio, stress testing, it's really hard to get those 75% LTV loans. But in the Northeast, I think that there's going to be a bigger swarm of capital, especially from the Southeast, where people are not getting the yields, not getting the leverage that they want, and they're looking for the next best place, and they're going up to the Northeast to find much better value. So I think that there's going to be maybe a bit of yield compression because of the amount of value that's, the amount of demand that's going that way. And certainly you've just bought 8 units, which, that's, if you get, 10 people doing that, 100 people doing that from London, that's a lot of investment up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Why the Northeast, not the Northwest or Wales? Because I always think of these kind of markets fairly similar in terms of price point. Why did you choose?
Well, the reason why I chose that, I've never been to that part Newcastle's been seems very far. Though when I first came to this country, at some point I did live in Leeds. So and when I started to look at statistics, I obviously have to follow the statistics, not just the fact that
That's it, good.
I chose to come from a personal point, so that I enjoy everything that I do. Because if you don't enjoy what you do, then don't do it. Does that make sense? You've got to
Yeah.
enjoy it. Then it doesn't feel like work.
Absolutely.
So first of all, at the time where I was looking into, acquiring properties in up north, first of all, if you know, the Arab investment came to Newcastle.
Newcastle United Football Club.
Yes.
It's very dear
So
to my
Newcastle
heart.
United is being bought by some Arab billionaires.
We're the richest club in the world. Newcastle United is my football team, so I'm like
So-
super like happy about all that.
Yeah, and when that happened, and there's been a lot of, redevelopment, regeneration going up in Newcastle. As you're aware, the same version of the O2 is being built in Gateshead,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and there's a lot of development coming out there as well, regeneration,
investment.
and as well as the largest, biggest battery factory is coming to Blythe
Right, I
as
didn't know
well.
that.
So, and all these different things coming through. When I started to dig deep, and look at it, I'm like, okay, so we've done a few deals in Bedlington and Blythe. We bought 4 properties in Bedlington, and we bought 4 properties in Blythe. And when I looked at it, well, it's only 70,000 pounds. I was going to say 80 70 quid. Sorry.
It's almost that money in London money, yeah.
So when I looked at everything, refurbishment, light refurb, 20K max, 25K refurb, revalue, 125, 135, 40. It makes sense. So I'm like, okay, let's do a couple of deals there. 2 weeks ago, I currently picked up 2 deals as well in Bristol.
In Bristol.
Yes.
Oh, that's going out Wales way, Somerset.
Yeah, so Somerset, Swindon, those areas as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So currently got 2 deals were picked up now, just waiting for, valuation to go through as well. So there's a lot of excitement happening around now. So like I said, one step at a time, isn't it? So we're going to finish Blythe, Bedlington. We're going to start, in Bristol, and just gradually moving around.
It's a challenging because I've gone the opposite way. So I invest remotely as well. So I do southeast, but that's kind of where I'm from. But I'll go maybe an hour into Kent, 2 hours, but then the West Midlands and the Northeast. And now I live on the South Coast just under a year ago. And with a kid, I just find it really hard to do the traveling. But it seems like you're going the opposite way, getting build teams in place and everything. Yeah. Do you have local people there, or is it you literally personally traveling?
We have so the way it's been structured, we have a local team, that we built now there, as well as I'm a coach. I train people, So some of our community members now from London kind of also feel like, oh wow, it's like 2-3 weeks break from London. All the headaches and everything. Or West.
Site visit.
It's just like I said, it's amazing to just be able to get away, have that team there, see them, be with them for like a week or 2, site visits, less traffic.
Yeah.
So I went down the other day and I actually spent about a week. Stayed in a really nice hotel. For me, obviously, my London, whatever I've got going on in London pays for it. Honestly, like, if I was to move to Newcastle, I'll live like a king.
Yeah.
Because the prices down there just absolutely...
I've looked at them many times before, like 4-bedroom detached houses compared to what we get here. I used to live in just the Olympic Village, which is just on our doorstep where we are sitting right now. And the rents and the prices compared to, I mean, what you can get a 3-bedroom flat here for, you get literally like a 6-bedroom detached little mini mansion up in the Northeast. It is amazing. So I mean, you've got people, you've got all that kind of logistics. It'd be really interesting to follow up and find out how those projects go over the next 12, 24 months. One of the final topics that I wanted to touch upon as well is the property education, because that's something that you are big on, and it totally makes sense because that's something that's helped you, and likewise you're kind of passing that on to other people. And I am a true believer in the beauty and the powers of wealth through property. Right, it's something that I've seen throughout my life in so many different ways. However, the property education industry gets a little bit of a bad rap.
Yeah.
Not a little bit, quite a big rap.
Quite.
Yeah, quite a bad rap. So anybody that's putting themselves out there in front of other people and making claims about this, that, and the other, they find it, they become an easy target for a lot of people to say, fake guru and this, that, and the other and all that sort of stuff. From your point of view, you've helped a lot of people already. You've got testimonials, your community's growing. What do you do to make sure that you don't fall into the traps that other trainers have fallen into, to not have those accusations thrown at you? What sort of thought processes do you go through, and what sort of do you have any measures to make sure that you don't attract that kind of attention?
Very, very good question, Sam. I think the reason why I've said this is quite a very good question is, I think, first of all, it's a very interesting industry that so far so good. I haven't, over the last 5 years, especially, our company just became 5 years old last year, November, one of them. And I've not had any negative, whether from investor or whether from our student or any community member or any negativity. Number one, I do things from my heart. That's number one thing. Number one, I do things from my heart. And number two is I over-deliver and I under-promise. So I could tell you I'm going to do X, Y, Z for you, 3 things I'm going to do for you, but I'm going to end up doing 6 things for you. I think that's one of our biggest secret. The biggest secret, I promise to do 3 things for you, and I'll do 6 for you. And number 2 is property investing is not get rich quick like so many other people will promise. And I think the people, again, sometimes I think it's not even the gurus that are the problems, the listeners that are the problems. And ask me why. How can somebody tell you you're going to become rich tomorrow by investing in property today, and you believe that?
Yeah. So if I was to play devil's
and just very quickly, one more. And somebody says, "Oh, do you want to quit your job today? And you're going to get rich tomorrow, become financially free in property tomorrow." And you actually listen to that. And then you wasn't told that you needed to work hard. Everyone, everything was just showing you the dream, the luxury car, the Rolexes, the nice restaurant, the flying of the business class and all of that. And they told you can have it today. No, you can't. You're not going to have it today. 6 years I've been in this game. In as much as I'm enjoying and having the best year of my life, it's come with blood, sweat, and tears, hard work. And I sell that. I don't sell you're going to get rich overnight, but I sell you're going to get rich for sure. But give it 5 years. So I think that's what's working for me. And again, I don't manipulate testimonials like others. I've seen some of, 2 of my ex-students have gone to some other providers out there to start saying they're making £50,000. Like, you didn't make £50,000 when you was me. You're bloody fucking, sorry.
It's all right. They're not going out on ITV or anything.
You're bloody lying. And I've seen another one say, "Oh, he's not a millionaire." I was like, "You're bloody lying." I've seen things. I've seen some of my students that's left me and gone to them. I'm not upset that they left or anything like that. But the fact is that these things takes time. It just bloody takes time. And because it takes time, you can't. It's knowledge first. You have to have knowledge. You have to set a 5-year goal for yourself. Then you got to take endless, consistent action. So as long as you understand those things, then it's going to work for you. So that's what I sell. I sell that. It's going to take you time. And the fact is that people don't like time. I've just talked about delayed gratification. Delay everything and enjoy later. People don't talk about that stuff. So, and that's the reason why I'm different.
Totally agree. I think that's an important message that needs to come across from authentic, genuine people that are literally sincerely trying to help people. I think that the get-rich-quick scheme, whether you're doing Forex, whether you're doing crypto, whether you're doing property or anything else, you can get from A to B, you can get from 0 to 100, but they don't necessarily, and they show you like the Bentley and the first class and the holiday view in Santorini and all that, but they don't necessarily show the middle bit, which is the blood, sweat, and tears. They don't show the journey on the way there, and what ends up happening. And I do understand this, the vulnerability of certain people, right? So you've got somebody that's just come out of uni or whatever. They've like spent all their money on credit cards because the bank was giving them loads of overdrafts and everything. They got 5-10 grand of debt, and they're like 2022 or whatever, or something like that. They might have got their girlfriend pregnant, and they're like, oh my God, I'm in deep and I've got one credit card left. I'm going to go to this get rich quick scheme, or, you know, this promise that I'm going to make loads of money. And then they put you on a credit card and this, that, and the other. And then they don't necessarily get there because they've been sold a pup. And I think those are the horror stories that we hear about. And for me, I'm a true believer in education, especially financial literacy and education in that way. Property investment is one of the best vehicles in the world, especially UK property investment. I'm like a big advocate of this stuff. So one of my personal things is that I would like to be a champion of authentic, good trainers out there in the marketplace that can really genuinely help people do more of what I've been doing. I've been kind of part of your
You've been part of it.
Yeah, and I hope to be part of the long-term success. So it's important for me to associate myself with good people, and I think that if there is a trainer out there and you're hanging out with other trainers in the same room, you know, the ones that are maybe cutting those corners and just taking a quick buck, you know, calling them out a little bit, and hopefully the industry kind of almost self-cleanses itself to make sure that vulnerable people, I think that's the most important thing. And I do agree with you. Like, I think market forces, people need to take accountability for themselves. If you're going to fall for that trap and you're going to get conned into believing that you're going to make money overnight, you kind of deserve it. But at the same time, as a society, we've got to be responsible for one another.
I think the society's gone a bit left instead of gone right. Because let's face it, people love to blame people. I think the society needs to start taking responsibility of the actions they take. You see, I've taken actions in my life that's led me into something else, and I took responsibility. Yes, that was my fault. And until today, I accept when I am at fault. You know, when I run masterclasses that are completely free. We don't give you a link to pay. We go through, you've come, you've listened. You want to do properties, right? We have to speak to you for at least another 15 minutes to check whether you're the right fit, whether you're vulnerable or not. We just kind of want to get to know you. And we're going to tell you on that call, all right, yes, you're going to get the result, but it's not tomorrow. So we prepare your mind. It's going to take you time. I've raised a lot of money through my network. It didn't come overnight, right? I have a brand behind me. I have a name behind me. If I wasn't credible enough, you've not seen me part of my journey. There's level of conversation I've had on this podcast I've never, ever had. In fact, all the podcasts, people ask me this topic, I just kind of shy away from it. But this is one of the realest podcasts out there, and it's called Property People, and, you know, we've got to be real with
Absolutely.
this thing. So for me, I just believe that people just got to, don't use your naivety as a victimization of
As a
yourself,
defense, yeah.
as a defense. Oh, I was vulnerable. No, you're not vulnerable. Somebody said to you, you're going to become a property millionaire in 6 weeks, and you believed it. There was work.
What do you expect to happen?
What do you expect to happen? It's the truth, and people have to.
It is the brutal truth.
It's the brutal, and I've chosen to be that. That's why I said I'm not going to politically correct anymore. I'm going to be brutal about the truth, and the truth is, you're not going to be. People look at me on social media with all the things I've achieved so far, and they say, "Oh, how did you do it?" I'm like, I grafted my ass out.
You know what? Honestly, there's one particular trainer. I'm not sure I should mention it, but I have massive respect for this guy. It's like, if out of all the trainers, I've never really done that much training. Well, I've not done it. I've done his training though, and it was brilliant. And one of the reasons why I liked him so much is because he kept on saying how hard it is. And when he was going into the amount of detail, you could just see, and the guy's like an older guy, he's got so much experience, and you could just see that it is hard. And he teaches land planning and development, and he knows this stuff inside out. But one of the reasons why everybody loves him so much, and the reason why he stood the test of time, is because he's basically saying constantly, he's like the anti-guru almost. He's like, look, this is really hard. You know, you're probably going to lose money. until you've done a few deals and maybe broken even, and then you'll start making the money. And these are the deals that I'm doing, and I'm making six-figure sums. One of them, this one's going to take 5, 6, 7 years. It's going to make 7 figures, and you can follow the whole journey, and it's all legit. But it's hard. It's hard work, and unless you're really passionate about it, you're probably not going to make it. Now, at the same time, somebody might, some people like to, go to pottery class, and they might just go for 3 months, and they're not going to become master pottery people, and they just want to put a bit of money down and do the class for a little bit, and then try something else. So if you want to do the training on that side of things and learn a little bit about property for whatever, that's great. I think, and I think those sorts of people get missed out as well, because a lot of people say, oh, people take training courses and then they don't make money off it, and only the 20% make money. I think it's overthought, and I do agree with your position, which is that people need to take responsibility for the decisions they make as well. As long as you're coming from an authentic place, you're genuinely trying to help people, and people are learning off the back of it, there's always going to be people that want to complain, people want to blame other people for their own failures. I think all of that totally makes sense to me.
Absolutely. It's like you go to school to study medicine doesn't qualify you to literally go and practice medicine. You've got to go a bit more into, isn't
Exactly.
it? You go to law. You go to school to read law doesn't make you a practicing solicitor, because you got to go to law school, and that's even when you're in law school, it doesn't still guarantee you, that you're going to be a successful lawyer.
You're going to spend loads of money on education, and people don't actually do that in the end. Historians or anthropologists, they go and study and get the degree, but they don't necessarily do that as a profession. So you can go to a property training course and you can learn about property. It doesn't mean you become a property investor necessarily.
Absolutely.
So I do agree with all of that, and I think that all makes sense. And I think if you're a genuine person coming from a good place, I don't think it's anything to worry about. And I do think talking up about the difficulties and the hurdles and the challenges, and then holding people to account, saying it was absolutely clear, don't come after me if it didn't work out. I did tell you had to go and do 600 deal appraisals. I did tell you you'd have to travel the country. I did tell you have to do 18-hour shifts, put in the hard work. And then eventually, 17 years later.
There's something I learned. It says, do what's hard now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do what's hard now, and your life will be easy later. Do what's easy now, your life will be hard later.
I used to say something which is, you can take today off, but you've got to go to work tomorrow. Or you can go to work today and take tomorrow off. So it's up to you. What do you want to do today?
Absolutely.
Just to wrap up, one of the things there's many things that I find endearing about you. And one of those is that I genuinely feel like I resonate with your passion for property. It's kind of up there with my kind of appreciation for everything that property's done for me. You are a property person. For other people that are wanting to get into the property or wanting to grow into, what would you say is an important trait that somebody has to have to become a property person?
I think, like I said before, it all begins from your head to your heart and to your mind, and backwards from your mind to your heart to your head. You have to first flow through this process and system of understanding that it's 90% mindset. Whatever you want to become in life, especially property, you've got to have the mindset for it. You've got to be prepared to know you're going to cry, you're going to have down valuations, and the lender is going to ask you to bring your blood. Okay, they're going to ask you for your blood. And it's okay. It's the process of the application process. Lender's going to ask you, why did you spend X, Y, Z? Your financial spending, you're not responsible. It's okay. Okay, how do we fix this? So it's always going to be, okay, how do I fix it? How do I fix it? So it's 90% mindset. Your mindset got to be prepared for it. Mindset kept us together as friends over the last 6 years. I've known you and you've known me. You literally, when you first met me, I wasn't acquiring assets. I was still doing rent to rent. And over the years, I've grown and I've grown and I've grown. And because of how much you've seen me grown, it's not just the property side, but it's who I'm also becoming. So if you're not growing, you're dying. So it all begins from your mind. It's all well and good. We all want to be wealthy. We all want to be financially, ahead. We want to have abundance. We want to create wealth, but it's your mind. It begins from your mind. So I think it's quite important whether you're at the beginning stage of your property investment journey or you are at the growth state of your investment journey or you're about to scale, whatever the case might be. It's all about your mindset.
Fix up your mindset.
Fix up your mindset. Understand property investment is not just investment, it's entrepreneurship. You are a CEO of your business, and it's a business. And business, you have good days, you have bad days. There's profits, there's losses.
Very well said, Daniel. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, be part of your community, come to one of your events. I've talked to one of your events. You've got a great crowd with a great energy, all enthusiastic, smart people. How should they find you? What's the best way to reach you?
The easiest way to reach me is head to our website is www.propertywe.co.uk. So www.propertywe.co.uk. So you got all my social media handles there. You got everything that you need to know about me on that website. Or better still, reach out, to me on my Instagram handle, which is one of the most popular one, is at Dr. Moses.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. Have a great day, and we'll catch up with you, see how all these projects are going, and see how you're growing.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it. All good?
All good. I really enjoyed it, man.